Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Films Not Movies podcast with me, Aaron.
And me, Charlotte. That's right, we've hit double digits. Woohoo! So today we're going to be talking in the main about the film Moonlight, which won Best Picture at the Oscars this week.
That's right.
And we're going to be discussing the Oscars in general in a bit more detail.
Yes, after that. So, here we go, Moonlight.
So Moonlight is a story, and it's a coming-of-age story really, about a young black man who lives in Miami and about him growing up really, and it's a film in 3 parts and it follows him throughout those 3 stages of his life and how he deals with his sexuality, relationships and the world around him.
So the film is directed by Barry Jenkins, who also has a writing credit for the screenplay. I'm not too sure. Well, I think he's pretty much a newcomer to directing films and has quite I was going to say a large cast, even though it only revolves around a few characters. The main character of Chiron is played by 3 different actors across the 3 different acts of the film. Alex Hibbert plays Little, who is the youngest incarnation of him. Ashton Sanders plays Chiron, which is the central part of the film, and Tevante Rhodes plays Black, which is the last act actor. And now these all play the same character, so when we refer to them, we'll probably say Chiron in general, and if we want to talk about that actor's performance in particular, we'll refer to them by their name. I think it's probably going to be the easiest way of doing it.
He's called Chiron, but when he was younger he was nicknamed Little, and when he was older he was nicknamed Black, so that's how they've divided up the film, by those nicknames and parts of his life. Mahershala Ali, who plays Juan, Janelle Monáe, who plays Teresa, and Naomi Harris, who plays Chiron's mother, Paula. So we follow Chiron. So the first act, he's really quite young. I don't know, maybe 8 or something like that.
Yeah, and he's basically being victim of bullied.
Bullied.
Maybe because he's a bit small, he's a bit awkward and a bit quiet, and he's having issues at home with his mum, which is a reoccurring theme throughout the whole film, and it's probably a lot of the reason for why he does feel uneasy in himself. Yeah,
his dad's not on the scene. He's got major mother issues, let's just say, and it's, he meets this character played by Mahershala Ali, who I've just realised is called Juan, not Juan. I thought his name was Juan. Well,
they certainly said it like Juan all the way through, but
yeah, then it's different phases, dip in and out really, of we see how he is when he's that age, and then it comes back and he's in his teens. And life hasn't really got any easier for him, very much having to deal with all of that plus high school life, which never makes things easier for anybody. And then the third act is really quite different because he's quite a bit older, he's in his 20s, built his own life, but you have no inkling of what that life is going to be like. No. And it's really interesting to see the path that it does take.
That's right. Where do you start with a film like this? I'm not too sure, to be honest. It's quite something.
It is. It's an amazing piece of work, really. Yeah. And I was fascinated by it all the way through. The performances are amazing, but in a very different way to the way you might describe the performances in, well, obviously La La Land is a very different film.
Yeah, it's a film that I was massively looking forward to, but massively intrigued, but also massively concerned that is this going to be something which is hyped up and not quite good enough, is what I was fearing from it when something has so much hype behind it, especially coming from such a small film with a tiny budget with people, you recognise some of the faces in it, but they're certainly not full of big names. To me, it was within the first few minutes of the film, I was like, we're watching something quite special here. It's just the combination of everything. It doesn't hit you with huge dramatic scenes straight off the start. I guess they are kind of, but it's the way the film looks, it's the way the film sounds, it's the way it's acted. It's as you said, it's different. It's so different.
Yeah, not different in a far out, wild and wacky kind of way. It's just subtly different in the camera angles and how they just make you feel completely immersed within the film. And I think the performances are subtle, and the way the camera angles, sometimes you feel as if you're seeing out of the main protagonist's eyes. You're running down the football field and seeing what he sees as he runs down the football field. And then it's more like what you see in real life, really, which is sometimes it's a bit blurry. Sometimes you just see half a person's face. You're not presented with a beautifully lit, facing forward person all the time. Life is just a series of snapshots, and how you remember things are not always how they were, so it's just more realistic somehow.
Yeah, it definitely has, maybe hyper-realism isn't quite the word I was thinking of, but it does feel very as you say, mainly from the point of view of the main character Chiron and his take on life. But it isn't always that you see people looking at him, and it's not always a point of view thing going on. But it just makes it all seem very. I think you saying it's got a dreamlike quality to it is definitely not dreamlike, like memory, like someone remembering these things.
Yeah.
Because even though it seems real, it doesn't look gritty and real. I think the colours are all very bright and bold. It all looks, it's funny, it looks very precise, like every shot has been really considered, even though it's almost seems realistic as well, like it could just be a camera following him around.
And some of it is wobbly, you can see the camera visibly wobbling,
but that seems like it's all been taken in, that has all been done very meticulously on purpose. I don't feel like there's any, it seems spontaneous while you're watching it, but I think you really get the feeling that it all has been planned out, and this is absolutely to its credit. That isn't a criticism at all, it being that meticulously planned out, because it just makes it for like a perfectly constructed visual side to the drama that you're seeing unfolding, which is a very personal drama, but it just adds this extra layer of something special to the film.
And it's funny what you say about the memory quality of it, because I guess these are almost defining moments in his life. So these are things that he's remembering and, you know, shaped him as a person.
I mean, if you boil it down to what the film's basis is, obviously we said the opening paragraph about the film, but it follows this guy's life really in 3 days. It's one day of him as a small boy, one day of him as a teenager, and one day as him as a young adult, essentially. Might not be exactly one day, but it's no more than that in each section.
A few days in each one, and that's it.
Yeah, and so they're very much defining small parts of his life that have had huge defining effect on who he will be in the end.
Yeah, and the performance, I mean, you feel for him so intensely, and he doesn't have a lot of lines in really any of the stages.
No.
The life in the eyes, which conveys all the feelings and emotions that he's going through. You're engrossed watching it, and you're so sucked into what he's going through. And, you know, I knew that it was a film of 3 parts following him in different ages of his life, and I was really intrigued and almost excited to find out where he would be next, you know, because I cared about him so much. I was like, oh, what's the next one going to be? You know, what will he be doing? Where will he be? And I really kind of felt like I was really following him. Yeah,
I think you connect to his character very quickly, despite him being so quiet and obviously having issues in his childhood. You do connect to him very quickly and want to follow. You completely buy into it being his story, despite him really not being the main character, certainly for the first third of the film, which is dominated by the character played by
Mahershala Ali.
Yes, easy for you to say. Who is almost like a father.
Mahershala, I think it might be.
Yes, Mahershala. Yes, I think that I've heard it said like that. We'll go with that. Mahershala Ali. I think I can say that. Mahershala Ali, who is essentially a surrogate father figure to him completely by accident in the first third of the film, where he's trying to impose his own moral compass on Chiron, but also maybe using his opportunity to play a part in a young boy's life to right the wrongs of some of his decisions in life. Yeah, and there's a real sort of moral dilemma, moral anguish that his character goes through, which is really powerful, actually, and you can really feel the anguish that he's going through, but not in an incredibly over-the-top way, and they don't linger too much on anything. And that is such a strength of this film, because the characters are going through strong emotions, but you don't feel like you're being emotionally manipulated at any time, not by the music, not by dwelling on certain scenes. And there's very sad things that happen that are mentioned in one line, and another filmmaker would have made that scene into something and made it a big, overblown, everybody reacting to it. Yeah, building up to it, big use of strings in the music to make you... There's none of that, and I really respect that. But all along, really, I think, obviously it's about his story and it's about his life, but some of the themes that come up, really, it's, for me, and obviously I'm not a man, but one of the main themes to me was masculinity and what it means to be a man. Yeah, well, I think it's very interesting, because I'd say it's absolutely about a man coming to terms with his own sexuality in a subset of people, which is African Americans, where being gay really isn't something that is very socially acceptable, and how he comes to terms with whether he is and how other people will treat him, and how and he doesn't really know how to even treat himself, or how no way of coming to terms with it other than coming to terms with it by himself. Which
it just seemed to be about the way that a man is expected to be, and how people deal with that when they don't feel that they fit that mould, and whether they happily forge their own path or feel like they can't forge their own path. And also, I really felt that it was about communication as well, really, because Chiron is unable to articulate himself a lot of the time, and how hard it is for men to speak about their emotions and things like that. And obviously it's easy when you've got the right person, but I don't know, it just really made me think about the role that men are expected to play, and the repercussions that has on kids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in each stage of his life, Chiron is played by a different actor, and it has been commented on that the actors don't have that massive a resemblance.
No, I mean, I think you maybe thought they looked a little bit more similar than I did. I really felt they looked, all three stages, very dissimilar, and it's something that you would normally really pick at a film for, or I certainly would anyway. It's like they couldn't even find someone who looks the same, but it couldn't matter any less to me in this film. In fact, if anything, it could be him looking back on himself and thinking of that was how he was at that point.
Yeah.
Or it could just be that they found the right voice and the right feel for each stage, and it was irrelevant how different they looked. And I think it truly is irrelevant how they look, different they look, because you just know straight away that it's him. There is no, whether there is meant to be any confusion or whether they thought they might be. I didn't find any at all. You just know straight away that it's him just before even his name is said. I think all three performances, probably especially the teenage version and probably the adult version, are just phenomenal. Great.
Yeah, completely. I feel like they knew the character of Chiron and picked the best three people that could embody that character. Didn't matter what their bodies were, really, because they lived that character. And I really, without sounding cheesy, you know, when you looked into their eyes, you felt like it was the same person in there every time. Such expressive eyes in this film. You know, so much of Chiron's character is through his facial expressions, and you know what he's thinking and what he's feeling without articulating any of it. And they all did that fantastically, and I 100% believed that it was the same person all the way through, even though the actors didn't look like they were from the same family or whatever. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point, that they do so much talking with their eyes, because I think of this as a dialogue-driven film, and I still believe that it is, but not that much of it is spoken. They're telling the stories with their eyes, and less so their body language, but so much just a little look at someone. It just
and body language and the way he holds himself. And I mean, growing up is tough anyway, but going through what he goes through, you know, you just really feel for him all the way through.
I think it's also worth mentioning the performance of Naomi Harris, who plays Chiron's mother, and I mean, she plays quite an awful mother, to be honest. But from all reports, apparently she was only on set for 3 days.
Wow, really?
So she appears in all three parts of his life, all played by her, which I think is quite interesting, seeing as they swapped the actor for Chiron and his best friend. And so for her to go through the journey that she does, and then imagining that she's basically just banged that out in 3 days is quite incredible.
Yeah, she was fantastic. Everybody was. And I thought Mahershala was great, but it would have been hard to say that he was better for me than any of the Chiron characters, particularly the two older ones. I thought they were fantastic. I thought it was pretty close to say he was strongest out of those, really, but I guess Mahershala had more to do and was a sort of bigger character.
He was
less internal.
He's the setup for the film, really. He's the person that Chiron looks up, only male figure he has to look up to in the formative years of his life. So I think the reason why he's been recognised for his performance in this film is because it is such a huge part of what the film is, even though it's only in the first third of the film. So I want to talk about the music briefly. Nicholas Britell did the score for this film, and to start with, I was thinking when I was watching it, was like, oh, it's not too much music in this film, but I felt myself really thinking about it afterwards and deciding to look it up. And look into the details a bit more. And I think what did stick with me is that there is a reoccurring theme for Chiron that goes through each aspect of his life, and how that subtly evolves, and it kind of mirrors this character's position in life just through the subtle differences to this one really simple theme. It's not doing anything to... There are some pretty interesting pieces of music in there, but his theme, just few chords just moving around so slowly, and it's so different to the type of music that you would expect from gritty African American film. You might expect quite a different soundtrack if you were going down the more stereotypical where they could have gone with this type of story. But it's so... I think that helps give it that kind of reflective tone I was talking about before, how they just subtly change this theme. They either drop it to be a bit lower, or they extend it a bit, or just enrich it with a few extra instruments each time. I think they've done a really fascinating job with doing a score which is really powerful, but at no point ever feels like it's taking over the film.
Yeah.
It's never pushing your buttons, like we were saying before, making you feel one way or the other. It's just like, this is his music, and then this is the rest of the music in the film, and that's just going to just come in, just little hints of it.
Yeah.
Where the film needs it. If you listen to the soundtrack, there probably isn't that much music on there, but where it has been used, I think is very effective.
Yeah, I thought it was very effective too. Effective because it was subtle, really, and didn't steal the show, didn't over-egg anything, and just let the performances shine, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. So, Moonlight.
Yes.
Quite an experience, I would say. Really happy to go to the cinema when something has been touted as being something quite remarkable, and to agree completely with it.
Yeah.
And
because we wanted to see it for quite some time before the Oscar announcement.
Yeah, I know. We saw it the night that the day after the Oscar announcement. I was thinking, oh God, we must seem like right Johnny come lately now coming to see it. But we had wanted to see it earlier, and obviously the hype, the build up to it has been massive. So, what did you think? I
absolutely loved it. I thought it was superb. I thought the mood of it and the characters have really stayed with me. And I also, whilst watching it, was stricken with how rarely you see a fully black cast.
Yeah. And
it's terrible that it's such a rare thing. I think maybe there was a couple of white extras in a scene towards the end.
I don't think so. I read a fact that there is no white people on screen.
Really? None at all?
At any point in the film. But I don't think that is particularly worth commenting on, and I didn't really notice it, as in, because I just thought, well, this is a story in this world, but I think it's great to just have a story like that in this world, because it's so rarely given.
I don't know, I wasn't like I was going, oh my God, where are the white people? I just got to a certain stage in the film and thought, God, I don't think I've ever seen another film like this. And it's mad that I haven't.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I think it was absolutely fantastic. And I don't think there's been a male lead character like that ever in a film before. Not really so much because of the gay angle, but more just because of the vulnerability of the character. And, you know, I suppose there's comedy films where kids get picked on and then, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of Home Alone style comedy vengeance type or whatever, but this was just so much more realistic and so refreshing, really. And hopefully it's the start of things to come where men aren't the daring do, swashbuckling. Do you know what I mean? That it's hard to be a man and you haven't got all the answers. And yeah,
I think for me it's realising that just because someone doesn't say a lot, that there isn't something going on there, and they aren't internalising so much and fighting their own battles all the time and feeling alone. And I don't think that is something that is necessarily a problem just for men, but I can totally see why it would be harder if all this expectation culturally to behave in a certain way, as we mentioned before, for him to have this internal struggle to try and be who he is when he doesn't really know who he is, and just trying to fight this constant battle within is just amazing that they've managed to do a film like this. And there's no internal monologue of him expressing his thoughts. This is all just through him.
Just trying to get through life.
Yeah, just trying to get on with things.
Yeah. Scores?
You're going first.
All right. Well, I'm going to give it a 5.
Thought you might.
Because thought about giving it a 4, but then I gave Patterson a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And it's far superior to that. And I can't think of anything else that I've seen recently that is as good.
No, that makes sense. I think if you're using other films as a reference, your other films that you've rated, I gave La La Land 4 stars. I really enjoyed that film, but I enjoyed this film an awful lot more. And it might not be a film that I will love forever, but I think it'll always have a film that I'll think back to when we watch it and think of the impact that it had, and the impact that I think it will have an ongoing effect. The way that they've done things a bit differently can be a template for things to be a lot higher quality rather than just pointing a camera at people and letting them speak. So yes, I'll give it 5 stars as well, which is I think both our first 5s for the show. But I think it's thoroughly deserved. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of Oscar chat now, seeing as that was only a couple of days ago. And, well, it seems pretty fitting that we've seen Moonlight this week, which was always the plan to do Moonlight this week. But it helps that the winner of the Academy Award for Best Picture was La La Land. I mean, Moonlight, as you probably heard, there was a bit of...
The best picture was Emma Stone in La La Land.
The best picture is
She's
Emma
a great
Stone.
picture.
She is a picture. Yes. If you haven't heard...
you must not be alive.
You mustn't pay attention to this stuff, which I would understand. They read out the wrong winner of the Best Picture, which seems crazy, but it seemed like it was an honest mistake. We were given the wrong envelope. I've even seen an image of it saying on the front of the envelope, Academy Award for Leading Actress. So that was just a duplicate of the previous award. So they were just given the wrong envelope, which said Emma Stone for La La Land.
However, if I'd read a piece of paper that clearly said Emma Stone for La La Land, I would know.
I know, but if you've seen the wording of it, it's not that clear.
Really?
It says Emma Stone, and then in the same size font, it says the name of the film, and then says other people involved in the film.
Okay.
So they may have just seen La La Land, Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling, and will have said all these other things on the piece of paper.
God.
So it's understandable.
All right, old cock up.
A cock-up, but it should have been rectified quicker. And
it should.
Because basically La La Land people got on stage, started giving their emotional speeches, and then they had to say, no, this is a mistake, this isn't a joke, actually Moonlight have won. But I couldn't be happier for Moonlight to win, because 2 great films in La La Land and Moonlight. I know you didn't really like La La Land anyway, near as much as me, but I think it is the type of thing probably most other years would probably deserve to win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything else was close, really, had it not been for Moonlight.
No, I think Manchester by the Sea probably had an outside bet, but I think in terms of a dramatic film, that has been trumped this year by Moonlight just being that next step up in quality, in my opinion. And
I sometimes feel like when something is thought to be such a shoe-in, sometimes there seems to be a bit of a flip reaction to that when it's so 100% assumed that it's going to be one thing.
Well, I don't think it ever was, but I think there's been a huge backlash to La La Land, I think, understandably, because it is such a glitzy kind of all is shiny and right in the world, but it has been kind of made out to be some kind of Hollywood behemoth versus the scrappy undercard of Moonlight. But I mean, they're both independent films. They both had small budgets. I think La La Land cost about $30 million to make, and Moonlight cost about $5 million to make. We compare that to a Transformers film, which is about $150 million. I know they're never going to be in for this type of a category, but it isn't quite the disparity between the production standards of the films.
Yeah, it's not David and Goliath
as being made out. In the end, I think the award has gone to the right film. And also, I don't think there's anything sinister behind the reason for the wrong card being read out. I do think it was a mistake.
Just a botch. But yeah, I'm very, very pleased that it was Moonlight.
Yeah, we caught a couple of the other nominations, as we mentioned, Manchester by the Sea, and we saw Arrival as well. But yeah, I think from the ones we've seen, that was the right choice.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so leading actor. I think when we had a chat about this, we assumed that it was going to be Casey Affleck.
Yes, and he did win it.
He has indeed won it. I didn't expect it to be Ryan Gosling. I didn't think his performance, not that it was a bad performance, but I felt like it wasn't super demanding, although he did have to learn to sing and dance, and they do kind of like it when people go the extra mile to learn how to play an instrument and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when I think back on his performance, it just seems like he's just playing the Ryan Gosling nice guy most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it seems that for this role and then the big picture, the best picture winner as well, that they've definitely gone for who have done the big dramatic performances this year, when there obviously is that huge contrast between the drama and the showbiz side of the winners this year. So I think they've almost drawn a line and said, right, this side's getting the dramatic. But that's not to take away from it. I do think he has a great performance in the film. So, actress in a leading role, I think this is where they've decided to go with La La Land for one of the big awards, by Emma Stone being the winner in this. Now, it's the only one that we've got a reference point for, as we've not seen any of the other performances. So,
and they are all supposed to be, well, I've heard great things about Ruth Negga in Loving, and Natalie Portman obviously is doing a very detailed character study in Jackie. Florence Foster Jenkins is probably not the kind of film we're ever likely to see. So
it looks awful. I don't understand.
I was trying to be all tactful there.
No, why? It looks just...
But we all know Meryl Streep can act and is awesome, so...
And is an automatic shoe-in for a nomination, no matter what she's in. Yeah. She could be in the Emoji film and get a nomination, so...
Don't know much about Isabelle Huppert in Elle, I don't know. But I just think Amy Adams should have been up there.
Yes.
Okay, so Best Supporting Actor was won by Mahershala Ali from Moonlight, as we were just discussing.
Yeah.
And the other nominations, we saw Lucas Hedges, who plays the son, or Casey Affleck's nephew, in Manchester by the Sea. We haven't seen Hell or High Water, which Jeff Bridges was nominated for. We haven't seen Nocturnal Animals, that Michael Shannon was nominated for, or...
No.
So can't really comment, but Lucas Hedges was great in Manchester by the Sea.
Yes, but not as good as Mahershala Ali in Moonlight. And this is another category worth mentioning, because you'll have probably noticed that Sharon obviously was split across 3 actors in Moonlight, and he doesn't have a nomination in either Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor. And I think that is simply because it would be hard to pick one out of the 3 go with, whereas Mahershala Ali is definitely a supporting actor, but he has such a huge impact on the film, as we mentioned earlier. So I think it's a shame to not see them recognised in some way, but I can understand why they weren't.
Yeah.
So, actress in a supporting role. The winner of this was Viola Davis in Fences. Now, this is the one that, from all reports, was a shoo-in before everyone seemed to say that's who it's going to be. We've not seen Fences. Looks like a good dramatic performance. There's one I'm looking forward to. The ones that we had seen, the other nominations, was Naomi Harris in Moonlight, which we talked about her performance earlier, and Michelle Williams in Manchester by the Sea.
Also amazing. And
I can see why she would potentially have missed out. I think Viola Davis being such a front runner is probably a major reason, but I also think Michelle Williams' performance, as great as it is, she's in it for such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I can understand that they might have thought that was too much of a small part to be.
I mean, from what I've seen from Fences, Viola Davis is giving it her all, really giving it everything she's got in that performance, and can snot on cue. So
thanks for that. Okay, less said about that the better.
We've watched the trailer enough times.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything else too much worth mentioning, unless...
Suicide Squad won one.
Yeah, well, loads of bad films win technical awards.
The hair and makeup, though, I mean, I didn't think it was that great.
I'm not bothered. I'm just...
I could have done those pigtails and dip one end pink and one end blue.
True, but I mean, it's not worth making people seem to be outraged because it was a bad film that it's won something, but I think it's fine. Just having a quick look through the other categories now. Yes, this is one I was looking for, was the Music Award. Well, I wasn't actually sure which had won, and now I obviously should have known it was Justin Hurwitz for his score for La La Land, which is obviously such a bombastic musical score. Which dominates the whole film. It would make sense, but I have obviously just been singing the praises of the Moonlight score, Nicholas Britell, and also very, very intrigued by the Mika Levy score for Jackie, which is so prominent on the trailer. And I think that's the thing that stands out the most about the Jackie trailer, is this crazy music in it. So I'd have been really intrigued to see how that worked in the rest of the film, but completely understand La La Land winning for music.
And shall we talk about Nicole Kidman's clapping?
If you haven't seen Nicole Kidman's hands, weird sentence to say, but just Google her clapping at the Oscars, because
it's unusual.
I think she's some kind of alien person. I don't believe they're real hands. So award for weirdest hands went to Nicole Kidman.
Kidders.
Weird Grinch hands. Okay, so I think that'll do for this episode.
Yep.
Only one film covered, but I think in great detail, and then obviously the Oscars discussion covers quite a few points from other films that we have seen and gives us plenty of other ideas for future things to check out as well.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening.
This has been episode 10.
10.
10.
Yes, 10 whole episodes.
Ding, ding, ding.
We'll do the usual rundown. You can find us on Facebook if you search for Films Not Movies Podcast. F&M Pod on Twitter. Films Not Movies Podcast, search for that on YouTube. You'll find it, where I put a video version of all the episodes just in case you can't listen to it on anything else. And yeah, thanks again for listening.
Yes.
See you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.